Well, thanks so much for being here. Why don't I go ahead and just start with some background. We're here to talk about the state of the reusable transport packaging industry. My name is Tim Debus, the President and CEO of the Reusable Packaging Association. And this is the one time of the year where we can bring our member companies together for what really is the world's largest showcase of reusable transport packaging products and services. Around us is this reusable packaging pavilion, which is all around in the exhibition floor with the green carpet areas where we've got member companies on both sides that are here showing the latest innovations in reusable transport packaging products like pallets, bulk bins, containers, trays, and racks. And then within this, we host the Reusable Packaging Learning Center, which is the theater here, housing multiple days of education sessions and panel discussions. And so what we want to do is to bring live content with our expert speakers on a variety of different topics involving reusable transport packaging products and share insights and learnings in this industry that has continued growth and opportunity associated with the both economic and environmental benefits of reusable packaging systems. And so we welcome you here as we kick things off with my particular presentation, talking about the state of the industry. Where are we today versus, say, years in the past, but also a look in the future. What are some of the trends that are driving interest in growth in reusable packaging systems? And can we use a crystal ball to figure out where the industry is going and some of the demand factors associated with reusable packaging products and services? And this is all culminated into what we call the State of the Industry report. The first report that we did in 2020 served as the foundational assessment of the reusable transport packaging industry around the world. And we, this year, completed the latest update spanning the 3-year time period to look at the industry in more detail in terms of the size of the market, some of the leading demand factors that are changing the market, and really get into some insights on what's on people's minds. What are the industry thinking about reusable packaging, and do our best to show the correlation between a one-time period of 2020 and this year in 2023. The interesting part is in 2020 was right at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, their survey actually was being run during the times where there were a lot of questions about what is this and what impacts they were going to have. And here in 2023, we see how much the world has indeed changed. How we think about packaging materials, how we think about the environmental ramifications of our packaging behaviors, and ultimately how the economy is operating in terms of supply chains. And the 3-year time period has been a tremendous tell about how this industry has continued to evolve over the period of time. And that's exactly what our State of the Industry report was able to capture. And I'd like to share some of the background and some of the learnings that we were able to pull from this report. The report pulls really from 3 main data sources. The first is through our own internal member and RPA database. We've worked with a company called 10EQS, who specializes in market research, looking at market demands for mergers, acquisitions, and other business consulting purposes. And so this year we not only had our data, but we were able to validate it through a third-party expert service and leverage their insights to be able to roll up into quantified data about the size of the market and break it down on a per segment basis. We also did an online survey for a period of month where we had invited folks to come in who are involved in the industry, whether you're a supplier, you're a service provider, a primary end user or customer, and contribute by providing your thoughts about the reusable transport packaging industry and supply chains. This was particularly helpful when looking at the demand factors that we'll talk about today. And we had about 190 participants in that survey. And you can see through the pie graph, the breakdown was pretty well represented across all the different segments of the industry. And remember, with reusable transport packaging, it is truly a system. It's that circular approach in which you have multiple handling partners. So you have maybe a pooler who owns the asset and is renting them out. You've got your packer, grower, shipper who's packaging and shipping to the point of use. And then we've got the companies, whether it's brands, OEMs, and others that are handling and utilizing the packaging. The service provider section of our industry is really the fastest growing. And it's also the most exciting. The service providers are all those companies that are enabling that system of reuse to work. So think about logistics providers, transportation companies, companies that are providing wash machines and sanitation automation for facilities, technology providers, companies that are generating devices and the software services in order to tag or embed into a pallet or bin and trace it every step of the way in the supply chain. It are these services that are really allowing to take reusable packaging up levels of performance and value. And so we're excited to continue to include them here. And you can see the percentage also of the growth within that pie of companies involved in reusable packaging. And as that continues to grow, those services become more exciting in terms of optimizing reusable packaging in their use. Finally, we did some deep dive probing with brands and user companies to really pick their brain about their experiences with reusable packaging and their forward-looking insights in terms of how their companies are looking and evaluating reusable packaging as well. So these three components make up the report as it stands today. And some of the learnings is that the reusable transport packaging industry around the world is a $107 billion industry. When you stack that up against all packaging, the whole entire packaging industry around the world, reusable transport packaging for supply chains makes up just under 10%. And we're seeing the growth in that over the years from 2020, where we pinned it right at about $100 billion. And the compound annual growth rate of that time period is about 5.7% for reusable transport packaging products. That compares to the estimated growth rate of the entire packaging market around the world of 4.1%. So from this data, we're able to understand that reusable transport packaging is indeed increasing at a faster rate than the broader packaging industry, and it's taking up a larger share. We think that trend's going to continue for reasons that we'll talk about in terms of the growth factors of reusable packaging. But we're starting to see that in our numbers being quantified in terms of the size of the industry and the sales of reusable packaging products around the world. And then when you break it down by product, the breakout will show that pallets certainly dominate in terms of being the largest share of that 107 billion, right around 61%. Some of the other large categories include the handheld containers, totes, bins, and then unit load containers, which are mostly your bulk containers, your intermediate bulk containers or IBCs, those that generally are the pallet footprint that are transporting large liquids and volume cargo around the world. And then reusable plastic containers, which are generally handheld crates specific for shipping perishable food commodities from growers to retailers. That segment has always been well defined at RPCs, fruits and vegetables and dairy and meat, as its own category. So outside of, say, handheld crates as a distinguishing point. This hasn't changed too much over the years, but it continues to show a bigger pie, if you will, in terms of a larger number of usage and the value of these categories for reusable transport packaging on a byproduct basis. When we look at market segments or applications of reusable transport packaging, food and beverage certainly tops as far as those industries that utilize reusable transport packaging products for their supply chains more than others. Consumer durables, non-food products certainly has a large share, as well as automotive. There isn't a single market segment that is more penetrated with reusable packaging products than the automotive industry. They got on board a long time ago. They've usually got parts from manufacture to assembly, some nice closed loops, and they've been able to capture that immediate value of reusable packaging very quickly. And so you see high penetration rates in the automotive industry. And we always want to use the automotive industry to learn, okay, well, how are you benefiting? How are you gaining? Where are you saving money? Because even in complex supply chains, the lessons from more closed loop applications can be extended for learning. Not only saving in terms of reducing waste and pollution, but also driving cost efficiencies through the market as well. So the automotive industry is always a good one. And we know the changes taking place in automotive. It also requires changing in packaging as well. So it's an exciting market. Healthcare is one that I think shows a lot of promise for growth. Certainly shipping, very sensitive medicines, vaccines, other pharmaceutical supplies that have to be, clean room and temperature sensitive, protected. That's where reusable packaging can really excel as well. So a lot of these segments, there's such great room for growth that we continue to see that 5.7% of compounded growth rate we think is going to maintain, if not continue to increase as far as a larger share. And a lot of it is due to these market demands. And we've outlined 8 that we use the State of the Industry report in which the capture. The consumer preferences is the only new one from 2020. We did not track or ask about in our survey for consumer preferences, but clearly today, unlike say 3 years ago, that's a very important attribute or feeling that we need to be able to look at how consumers are driving change with brands and other businesses in the marketplace. So when you look at each one of these singularly, each one tells a story as far as what's driving interest in reusable transport packaging. Where is the opportunities looking ahead for reusables in the supply chain? And the State of the Industry report looks at each one of these factors in details and identifies trends, current events, other data elements that capture each one of these. What I wanted to do was to show a brief summary here today about how each of these factors changed since 2020. And asking the question is, how do you expect each one of these forces to impact reusable packaging's demand for your products and services over the next 5 years? And there's a few takeaways that I wanted to outline today. And the first is very striking, stands out in terms of opinions from 2020. Around 50% of respondents said that government regulations and mandates will impact reusable packaging in the next 5 years. Well, 3 years later, this year, that has jumped to 75%. And so just in the last 3 years, we're seeing a tremendous activity around the world with public policy makers, laws and regulations that are really focused on managing packaging pollution, packaging waste, particularly plastics, and efforts around the world. And we'll talk just a little bit about that in a moment. But this is also supported through high scores associated with sustainability commitments. This is like your ESG, your environmental, social, governance standards, in which companies are scoring their operations to determine a profile or a scorecard associated with ESG or other metrics about their company's impact on the environment. In 2020, we actually asked the question about public concern for the environment, which ties in a little bit about consumer preferences as well. But I think the takeaway here is that there is extremely high scores, over 80%, whether it's the consumer perception about the environment or companies' commitment to sustainability programs that supports this government regulation in response to environmental crises around the world. And that also shows at the very far end in terms of consumer preferences as well. That clearly when you're asking about how companies or customers or consumers, they are looking at the environment as a cause for change. And the regulatory environment, government action, is going to be a vehicle for that change. And so that's not going away over the 3-year period. If anything, it's gotten stronger. The one area that surprised me deals with raw material availability. Now, what's interesting, as I mentioned in 2020, the respondents was right before COVID, or right at the onset. And so a lot of the problems in 2020, 21, and even 22, where there wasn't enough product available. There was a shortage in supply chain. There was disruptions, right? It wasn't too long ago where finding pallets and bins and boxes and containers and raw materials, it was tough. Somehow that did not come out a year later here in 2023. The response is that it's really a low concern in terms of having an impact on reusable packaging, which again, when you manufacture reusables, it's here to stay. You don't have to worry about breaking and everything else in terms of your supply chain or availability of products. And so that's an interesting one that we're going to continue to trend and track as well throughout the years. To touch on the market demand factors, this is just a snapshot of some things that are going on, such as in the United States, where individual states are launching extended producer responsibility laws. 4 states right now that's shifting the burden of waste management from taxpayers to those producing the packaging. The US EPA has issued a draft strategy, national strategy for plastic pollution and how we can manage that. The US Senate has hearings on how single-use waste can be mitigated in favor of reuse and refill models. We know what's going on in Europe with the proposed packaging and packaging waste regulation of looking at reuse and refill targets. And also in Australia, recently finding that their targets for recycling is not meeting the mandates. And so now they're looking at instituting mandates for more reuse and refill. So there's a lot going on, including, maybe most notably, the UN Plastics Treaty efforts. This is that 75% and growing in terms of how public policy is going to impact the program. When we look at sustainability commitments, this is specifically the primary or end users, there is that growth. This is where you see companies are responding and saying that over the past 3 years, there wasn't a lot of activity with sustainability in terms of reusable packaging, but looking ahead, we expect there to be. So that is one of the takeaways that we're seeing throughout our State of the Industry report, is that the environmental response, particularly with legislation, is going to continue to show and drive demand for reusable packaging systems. If I can leave you with a thought in terms of where the state of the industry is, and I challenge myself every year of finding one word, not a sentence, one word. To me this year, it's enterprising. I thought this was a perfect word to capture what we're seeing out in the marketplace. New ventures, willing to try new things that are unusual, full of energy, looking at new ways of delivering success, right? Raising the bar. This is exactly what we're seeing in the reusable packaging industry, both for transport supply chain, but also for consumer and primary packaging as well. There's a lot of enterprising activity taking place, and it is so exciting to see innovation, to see new ideas, new approaches that are being experimented, that are being tested, that are being adopted around the world. And that enterprising approach, I think, is going to be a big difference as we look at this year versus, say, a state of the industry in future years. The Reusable Packaging Association is also enterprising. We have white papers out this year on technology and retail case studies and applications. Tomorrow afternoon, we're giving our 3 reusable packaging awards that show innovation and how automation and technology and design is changing the performance and opportunity with reusable packaging. We're seeing companies change as well. Most of these snapshot articles were cut and pasted from the last 2 months. From Starbucks to Uber Eats, Coca-Cola, Walmart, Ellen MacArthur Foundation working with Unilever, PepsiCo, Danone. These are just articles copied here from July and August, and this is happening. This isn't just RPA talking about it or a enterprising new business talking about it. These are leading brands that are finally saying there's opportunity here, but we also see the writing on the wall. And the government mandates are likely going to force us if we don't start acting today. That's not exactly the way I would pitch it, because I firmly believe that a scaled reusable packaging system is going to drive such tremendous economic value that companies are going to look back saying, why didn't we start this earlier? But hey, better late than never. Let's keep moving in this direction, and change is happening around the world of reuse. Our partners at the U.S. Plastics Pact launched a program this year of reuse catalysts. In fact, later this afternoon at 4 o'clock, the U.S. Plastics Pact is hosting a panel that's going to feature a lot of reusable packaging in the retail and also the consumer packaging space as well. So I invite you to come back and attend that. But these companies listed here, you probably have not heard their brands. These are the enterprising companies that are out in the world today driving the reuse opportunity. So truly, reuse is an enterprising activity today. And for us, it really comes down to not looking at what reuse can do today. Because a lot of people are saying, well, look at reuse is this, and let's compare it. No. That's not what we need to do. Look at reusable packaging as not where it is today, but where it can go and what it can be tomorrow. That's an important message for our industry, because with reuse, scale breeds efficiencies, driving opportunities, new approaches, new collaborations, new innovations. It's nonstop. There's never an end to reuse. So when you compare single use versus reuse, it's incomparable. And especially as we look at upstart reuse applications, it's only going to get better as volume and enterprise and innovation and technologies make it better. And so we're very excited that the best is yet to come associated with reusable packaging. And we see that in our numbers as we look at more of the factors around the world that's driving reuse in the supply chain. And if you walk the aisles of this pavilion, you'll see some tremendous innovation taking place that's driving that spirit and driving that acceptance. And most importantly, driving that performance that's not only eliminating waste and pollution, but it's also creating new economic value for businesses incorporating with reusable packaging products. We've got a wonderful lineup of speakers and topics today. We invite you to come back and stay and listen in to experts as they talk about their experiences with reusable packaging. Thank you so much for starting your show off with us. Welcome to the Reusable Packaging Pavilion and Learning Center, and excited to be able to tell and showcase the reuse story for the next few days here at Pack Expo Las Vegas. Thank you for your time.